Well, hello everybody, my name is Nicole and welcome to my channel. I can feel some spine shivering there at the title of this video. Today, as I said before, we are going to be talking about Ukraine. I I will have to here firstly mention I won't probably have as radical ideas about this situation as many would probably at first think, considering my extremely leftist views on certain issues that may or may not have become clear for my earlier political videos. Um, yeah, let's talk about Ukraine. This is weird because this time I didn't have any like notes written for myself. In the education video, I was constantly like fucking looking at them, but in the president video, I had written some things, but I didn't really look at them. And this is just coming from straight from my heart. So let's see how this goes. First of all, I guess I would like to say that the war is absolutely fucking horrible. It is one of the, well, from the ongoing wars, it is perhaps the second, actually, no, it's the third most deathly war that is currently raging on, only after the Yemeni civil war and the civil war in Syria. But um yeah, I condemn war crimes. Of course I do. Uh, I believe Vladimir Putin to be a war criminal. No shit, I do. I mean, I have considered him a war criminal even much before this, due to his actions in Chechnya. Um, However, I want to try and make the conversation a bit more something other than Ukraine good, Russia bad, because well, the most horrifying thing about this war is that even me saying that uh, I want to do that is, well, it's probably considered a war crime at this point, because, well, apparently you can't try to actually paint real pictures. Things have to be as simple, in their most simple form. There can't be anything that could in any way be considered protective, or in favor of Russia, which I don't even think I have any opinions that necessarily are in favor of Russia. Maybe some that are in favor of Russians, but not necessarily in Russia. And you also can't, of course, say anything bad about Ukraine, and especially not about Zelensky. However, I have noticed that that has kind of started turning now, like let's say in the past few weeks. There are more, there is definitely more open criticism uh, concerning both Zelensky and the Ukrainian government, uh, mostly due to people noticing that propaganda kind of goes both ways. I don't know how it's so fucking hard to, how it has been so hard to comprehend for like all of these past few months. Like, I think it's very obvious, but I guess we've all to some extent been uh, captured by some propaganda. Uh, yeah, for example, I saw uh, I saw articles about Zelensky saying something. He was like complaining about Russian propaganda or whatever. Yeah, you got absolutely no no right to judge about propaganda when, you know, you have all sorts of coasts of Kiev. And it would be a different thing if whatever the fuck, coast of Kiev and Snake Island, if those had been just some propaganda stories propped up by soldiers, but no, they were actually confirmed by the security service of Ukraine. So yeah, that's not a good look, and you can't really go calling them fake news. I think Zelensky actually called them fake news, whatever is the translation of fake news in Ukrainian. But yeah, oh, Coast of Kiev was, by the way, very interesting. I never really bought it, or I didn't care enough to really even be able to buy it because, well, it's well, I don't care that much about the military side of politics. Of course, I like the generality of it. Yeah, of course, because it's pretty much the most important part of politics to some extent when it is happening, when warfare is happening. But even then, I really didn't care about those. But yeah, propaganda goes both ways. That is important to remember. So, what do I think? How will this whole thing resolve? And uh, what is the best resolution? Well, probably that things go exactly back to how they were, and I mean that. In that Crimea is annexed by Russia, that Ukraine is controlled by Ukraine, perhaps even by Zelensky's government. It pains me to say that, but sure, if that's the compromise we're going for, yeah, okay. Crimea to Russia, and it should be recognized by Russia because it is Russian land. We all know that Crimeans actually want to be Russian. Of course, there's no like I don't think even Ukrainians or the Ukrainian government would try to deny that. Or of course they would. They of fucking course they would try to deny that when fucking 64% of by the way, I might get some things here wrong. These are just, especially on the numbers, they are coming off the top of my head. But like 64% of of Crimeans are Russian. Yeah, I think that they have some vote in it. And of course, we had the referendum in 2014, according to which, what, 98% of Crimeans voted for the annexation of Russia. Now we don't know uh, if that was in some way controlled uh, by the Russian government or influenced by the Russian government. It may have been, but I would still say that the result of that referendum would have most likely been over 80% in the favor of Russian annexation. Actually, not of Russian annexation, but of Russian autonomy, considering also the Tatar population there. And I'm not even sure would the Tatarians necessarily want. I don't know what the fuck the Tatars want. Maybe they want an independent Crimea, which is fine, sure. Or maybe they want, I don't know, Crimea to be part of Cyprus. I don't know what the fuck they want. But the point remains, most people of Crimea want to be Russian. There's no question about that. Uh, so yeah, I believe that, and many would probably argue and make it a bit more personal for me, asking that well, how about Åland? If the Swedish people of Åland wanted to be a part of Sweden, would you allow that? Yeah, of fucking course I would. Yeah, I don't understand why. Like, yeah, of course they all speak Swedish. They are autonomous already, and they can seemingly very well handle being autonomous. Yeah, of fucking course they can be Swedish if they want to be. The same way as Crimeans can be Russian if they want to be. And maybe it is even for the better. I am going to say it, that although a pretty brutal and oppressive dictatorship run by a war criminal, Russia is a better country, generally a better country to live in than Ukraine. Especially if you live in an urban area. It of course depends. Maybe Siberia, fucking Nenetsia, and those oblasts there aren't that good places to live in. But then again, you have similar places in Ukraine, especially in, well, actually all over Ukraine to some extent. All right. Oh yeah, of course. I completely almost tried to jump over Donbass. I guess I kind of, I don't know. Crimea is. Uh, I guess I'm more concerned with Crimea because that is a much clearer thing for me. To me, that is very clearly Russian land because it is clearly Russian land. It, the people there speak Russian. They are mostly inhabited by Russians. So yeah, but yeah, Donbass. um, Donbass. I don't actually. I one thing that I would consider for Donbass would be to. Okay, this will sound bad because I'm going to mention the Republika Srpska and Serbian Krajina as good examples. Yeah, I don't like those nations, but I like kind of the way the Republika Srpska was formed in '92, because the whole country was basically in '92 there was a referendum in which the people were asked, uh, like, do you want to form this sovereign state? It kind of wasn't, but you know, or do you want to stay here? And the communities that wanted to stay, they stayed, but the communities that didn't want to stay and wanted to form Republika Srpska formed Republika Srpska. That is kind of what I maybe would suggest for Donbass, because the ethnicity of the people of Donbass is varies much more than with the people of Crimea. Uh, yeah, so I would. That is probably my resolution. Like, these are of course the most idealistic versions of politically idealistic versions of how things could go, but they are how I would like them to go nonetheless. Uh, Crimea to Russians, Donbass by, well, I get, is it districts in Ukraine? I think it's either districts or regions. So a referendum by either districts or regions due to the, well, due to the ethnic diversity of Donbass. My English has been lagging a lot in during this recording, as we can see here. All right, what else? Oh God, sanctions on Russia. That is an interesting topic. What the fuck is the goal of those? What are we actually like trying to do? That was me waiting for an answer. I hope you already gave it, because I don't have a fucking clue. Uh, we had the UN vote about imposing sanctions on Russia, and about 160 of the members voted in favor of it, and about 40 voted against it. One thing, actually, I like, Yanis Varoufakis went on Democracy Now! A few months ago to talk about this, and I think he said it very wisely, that of those 40 countries, uh, those 40 countries have more than half of the Earth's population. Them, and I mean, and still. So was it? This is one of the biggest problems with the UN. Like, of course, because it's representatively democratic, so it's of course not democratic. But it is not even representatively democratic, really, when it's that unfair. That well, half the people of the world and their representatives want this, but the other thing happens. Yeah, I would once again ask, what is the point of the sanctions? Is the point regime change? Because if the point is regime change, then what the fuck? That is the most horrifying thing you could try to do now. first of all, there are a couple of reasons. Most Russians support the war. That is the major reason. If a regime change were to happen, and it wasn't good old Mikhail who uh, took over Russia after whatever happens to Putin, then that would probably be a civil war in Russia. And especially, I would like to question Biden's ambitions on these sanctions. Does he want a regime change? Because it kind of seems like he does a lot, and we know what happens with U.S. regime changes. It's just dictatorship and death, usually of millions, sometimes only of thousands of civilians. Oh, oh, the question on NATO. The question on NATO. NATO is horrible. I think I made that pretty clear in my tier list, on which I briefly during when I talked about Halonen and Niinistö, I think I made it pretty clear that they are absolutely horrible, or that, and I even went to call NATO a terrorist organization, and I to some extent do believe that, although the terrorist operations that I believe NATO to have committed, the biggest of them, or biggest in the terrorism wise, being Libya, because it was kind of essentially, you know, against this whole Arab Spring, or not against it, but like it was basically a terrorist campaign conducted on Libya to like encourage the growth of the Arab Spring uh, within the rest of North Africa. Whether that is a good thing or not, you can argue about it. Nonetheless, it was a terrorist campaign. If we go by the definition of terrorism, that is, of course, the word terrorism is so blatantly misused that I could go ahead and make the claim that all NATO operations that have ever been conducted since the 90s are all uh, terrorist campaigns or terrorist operations, because all of them involve civilian deaths. Almost all of them, except for the Pakistani, the airlift operations in Kashmir. Those I guess cannot be, and Operation Eagle Assist also, that didn't involve any deaths. I guess the naval blockades, some of them, they can be considered, well, indirect deaths caused by them. Yeah. Uh, so, do I want Finland and Sweden to join NATO? No, I don't. But I understand. This is the only time when I kind of do understand why so many people do uh, want Finland and Sweden to join NATO. But I would remind Finland and Sweden both of the EU Article 42.7, which is in all aspects the exact same as NATO's Article 5. And well, I guess it would prove one thing. If say Russia started invading Finland, uh, and the EU would just stand there, it would at least prove something, that the EU doesn't work anymore. I still have hope in the EU. After all of its failures, I still have hope in the EU, and I still think that it may be the utopia it aims to be. Of course, it has absolutely failed in that in almost every regard, but I still do believe in the EU, and I am pro EU. But if this scenario were to happen and they would completely neglect Article 42.7, then that would be the last straw that broke the camel's back. Then all hope in the EU would be lost. that would, yeah, that would be the last straw. Because, well, I mean, I believe it to be pretty clear that Russia would never ever go against the whole of the European Union. I think that's pretty clear. And would they go against NATO? Well, no, of course not. But they also wouldn't go against the European Union. So why would we join a mass murdering organization just so that we could be safe, although we already are safe? And if we aren't, then all hope, I guess, is lost, because that would signify the death of the European Union. Wow. Whoa, one last thing I guess that could be talked about is the whole Nazi thing in Ukraine. Yeah, it's very clear that there are Nazis in Ukraine, a lot of them. We have, well, we have of course the child indoctrination camps run by the Azov Battalion, and I guess by the right sector, which I actually a lot of people are of course they talk a lot about the right sector. I fear no, they talk a lot about Azov Battalion. I fear the right sector much more, and well, there are a few reasons to it. They may not be as popular, but they are much larger. They have approximately 10,000 members, and they are even much more radically right wing and much more openly neo-Nazist than the Azov Battalion. And the right sector, of course, has ties to the Ukrainian government, not as directly as the Azov Battalion, which is of course part of the internal ministry of Ukraine through uh, the civil guard, I guess. Hold on. Is it through the civil guard? Actually, no. This is something I should look up now, but I won't. But yeah, still through the internal ministry, the Azov Battalion is, of course, a part of the Ukrainian government, or its, well, its battalion, one of its battalions. And of course, we have the National Corps, and or the National Corps, I guess. Because hold on, no, it's in Finnish. It is Kansallinen Korpus, but it's the National Corps in English, and IDAR Battalion, of course, also. I really like the people who still claim that those aren't actually neo-Nazis. Like, that's kind of fucking hilarious. They're, well, first of all, the child indoctrination camps. I really recommend watching the short documentary about those from Vice. Fucking amazing. Published in 2014. And yeah, this is because this is one of the worst things about this whole fiasco. Like, now, like in 2014, it would, and like even just 6 months ago, well, yeah, 6 months ago, you could have said that, yeah, there are Nazi child indoctrination camps in Ukraine, and no one would have batted an eye. Now you say it, and, well, you're a you're a whatever, you're a fascist, you're a communist, you're an absolute monarchist, you're also an anarcho-syndicalist, a fucking pacifist, and I don't even know, you're a supporter of INSAC and whatever the fuck you want to name call the people who just say that, yes, children are indoctrinated to Nazism in, well, not necessarily Nazism maybe, but at least to nationalism in uh, in summer camps in Ukraine. It's a wonderful documentary, and also wonderful cinematography in that, the Vice documentary. They got pretty good good shots about their tattoos. That, if anything else doesn't prove it, having swastikas on your arms actually imprinted on the embodiment of who you are onto your body, then I don't know what signifies more a Nazi. And of course, I mean, they openly endorsed Stepan Bandera, and they even held a fucking march on the birthday of Adolf Hitler. And I refuse to believe it was because it's, Hitler's birthday is 420. Because of course those people don't actually support cannabis or the legalization of cannabis. It's weird because how somehow I should feel guilty for going against Nazis. And of course I don't think it's a good reason to start a fucking war. A terrible, brutal war in which already at least 5,000 civilians have died just because there are lots of Nazis in a country. That's fucking absurd to do it. And and my heart goes out to all the Ukrainians, but it's so fucking absurd that now I can't criticize Ukraine for anything. That's the most fucking absurd part about this. Uh, yeah, I guess that's mostly about that. Have I forgotten anything? I don't think so. All right, if to conclude, Crimea to Russia, Donbass should hold a referendum on that per district. Also, let's not just let's jump the whole way. Also, Transnistria and Gagauzia to Russia, and all the other regions whose people want to actually be Russians, or maybe hold the referendums first, but then very very likely they want to be Russian. Those at least which I mentioned. Then sanctions are terrible, NATO is terrible, and Nazis are bad. That's pretty much the conclusion. Hey, actually, I want to comment on that. Many people argue, of course, about the Wagner Group when talking about Nazis in Ukraine. Yes, it is true, but it is still a private military company. It is not a part of the Russian government. That is something I would like to affirm. The Russian government necessarily doesn't have anything to do with Nazis. Not necessarily, at least. And I mean, I still think that the like in the 200 last years of Russian history, the best was Putin's first term, like the best age there. Uh, and it's fucking horrible to see this man who, well, I never thought that he was a great or even a good politician. He was in his first term the only somewhat capable Russian leader after Lenin. And it's fucking horrifying to see him deteriorate into this, whatever the fuck this even is. And that why I brought up Putin's first term is because in his first term he pretty much eradicated Nazism from Russia by eliminating the what the fuck is it? I actually don't remember. National Unity, Russian National Resistance Unity. What the fuck is it called? In the early 2000s. Still, actually, he might have been prime minister when that happened, but I know that he still had a very firm influence on that. Well, yeah, anyway, that's the whole conclusion and extra point on Putin's fight against Nazism. But yeah, and like, yeah, I probably believe him that he is trying to honestly fight Nazism. Yeah, sure, he is fucking terrible at it. He's killing civilians left and right. He is a war criminal by all means, and even before this, I mentioned Chechnya. Uh, yeah, Putin is terrible. Russia is terrible. Ukraine is terrible. Zelensky is also terrible. Holy fuck, people. Okay, I keep on getting sidetracked. I should have already ended this, but I want to talk a little bit about Zelensky. He might have been the best president of Ukraine of the last four presidents of Ukraine, but that's not saying much. Actually, in all honesty, maybe I like uh, Yanukovych more than Zelensky, but holy fuck, Ukraine's had bad, bad presidents and governments for the last, like, let's say, 10 or 12 years, like from Yushchenko to Zelensky. Like people, of course, like Zelensky just because he's this patriotic. Like he's a good leader because he refuses to leave his country in time of war. Like that's the requirement for a good fucking leader. I think that's like the minimum for any leader ever. Like if you're just like talking in simplistic leader uh, moves, it's of course bats it insane sometimes to remain in your country if there's no hope left, because you can actively make things better through uh, political whatevers in other countries. Yeah, Zelensky is fucking horrible, and absolutely no one knows about his politics, actual politics. Everyone just likes him because he's there yelling Slava Ukraini, and then after addressing the Greek parliament, bringing out just Nazis to speak for him. Yeah, anyway, this has been fun. War is terrible. Ukraine, fucking terrible. Russia is even. The Russian government and the Ukrainian government is both terrible. The Russian government being slightly more, actually a lot more terrible right now. But yeah, Nazis are terrible. War is terrible. That's probably how this should be concluded. Thank you for watching this. I had fun. Thank you and goodbye. Slava Ukraini.